I think as a whole, society is actually destroying femininity. I know it's a bold, radical claim by a male, of which you can therefore assume other chauvinistic traits that I probably have, you know? But wait. Hold on. Hear me out for a bit. Just a bit. The way society functions right now is that it rewards work, right? You put in work and you get money, and therefore you can use the money to buy things to sustain yourself. You know, you buy food, you get shelter, yada yada yada. In fact, if you really work, and you go at it and you get money, right? You can have so much money that you can retire early. You know, you won't need to work in your 70s and your 80s. And if you like really push it, right? If you really push it right now and just feed capitalism, you can get even more money. And you can retire even earlier. But just more money. Just, oh my god, all that money. Now, personally, I like capitalism. Capitalism has produced great countries like ours. Although particularly things are happening, but I think we'll get through it. But that's beside the point. And while capitalism isn't the most ideal solution, it's better than socialism, Marxism, communism, authoritarianism, and every other ism out there. It's the least of all evils. And so some things I want to define first are feminine and masculine traits, or rather how you describe a person as masculine or feminine. Well, I mean, some things you could literally just search up right now is, feminine traits. What are those? Let's say affection, patience, compassion, intuition maybe, kindness. Just 5, right? If you search up like masculine traits, right? Strength, courage, independence, leadership, assertiveness. Ooh. I mean, literally you can just find these online just by searching. And I have some issues with this, really, because you can be a hyper masculine man and still have these feminine traits. You can be a hyper masculine man and still be compassionate, patient, and all the rest. Rather, I will use another definition of what is defined as feminine or masculine, of which I agree to way more, which is from the book The Way of the Superior Man by David Ida. Good book, by the way. And so the priority of the masculine is to his mission, his purpose, or even freedom, really. As a generality, the media that men watch, sports, movies, all these really have a goal in mind. Why do men get so obsessed with sports? You want to win. You want to see people win. There's a goal in mind, right? And then for the feminine, the priority is love and family. I mean, you can pretty easily see this in things that women consume, really. Love stories, dramas, books, like the genre of the books, TV shows. You can sort of just, as a generality, see this in your life and in the lives of other people. And so you can sort of notice how none of the definitions I use have the traits I listed above. Like, none of them. There's no independence. Actually, maybe independence for masculine being free, but that's kind of special. As a generality, those traits can be for anyone. Masculine or feminine, they are just traits that anyone can have. And therefore, they are not accurate in describing a masculine versus a feminine person. I also want to point out that every person has a balance between masculine and feminine energies. You may be more of a masculine person. You may be more mission-bound, more focusing on your purpose in life. Or you may be more focusing on love, on having a family. In addition, these things can change. You can go from being really mission-bound, and then once you have a family, it's like, oh shit. My family is so much more important to me. And so that's a shift. But as a generality, men will be dominated by the masculine drive, which is the mission, the purpose, and women will be dominated by their inner feminine, by the desire for love and family. So with that long definition, I hope you can already see why I said that society is destroying femininity. Particularly, society promotes masculinity. It promotes the mission, which is inherently a masculine drive. And as a whole, society is pushing more and more importance on the career, onto women, and at the same time, smothering motherhood. And I wouldn't have a complaint, I guess you could say, if just careers were pushed onto women, because I think that's great. But at the same time, there's this sort of insufferability, this distaste for motherhood, which I find to be quite destructive. And certainly they are not mutually exclusive. You can have a career and also be a mother. And certainly countries have found a solution. Hungary, for example, has a tax reduction. For every child you rear, you get a 25% tax reduction. So like if you have 4 children, you pay no taxes. Like that is a huge incentive. Like even if you were to have 2 kids, that's 50% of your taxes that you don't pay anymore. Bro, like why not bring that here? Bro. For one, it can be a great solution, possibly, to declining birth rates. At the moment, declining birth rates are a huge threat to humanity as a whole. Much more than climate change will ever be in like a decade. In 50 years. Maybe even a century. Like, climate change is not nearly as important as birth rates right now. Like, in Korea, the birth rate is like, I think below 1 which means that for every person, there's less than a person replacing that person. And the thing is, like, with declining birth rate, it's exponential. Like, the less children you have, that generation has less people to mate with, and therefore to increase the birth rate. And therefore, if population decline keeps going, right, less children, they have less children, they have less children, they have less children. It's like it just keeps going smaller and smaller, and like within like 2 or 3 generations, like you just have very minimal population anymore. I mean, it's very scary, and it's a really big concern, especially to Korea, Japan, Canada somewhat. United States' birth rate is kind of declining right now, but it's a huge concern. But anyway, that was a long tangent. It's in this promotion of women to become more masculine and to reject their own femininity that I have a very big problem with. It's basically portraying the feminine as not ideal. Like, as compared to having a career, which is a masculine drive, you should pursue that and not pursue your feminine drive. You know, it's basically saying that the feminine drive is worse than the masculine drive, which is really ironic given that most advocators for this rejection of femininity is women. I mean, do some women believe in completely rejecting their femininity? I mean, I hope not. I hope they're rejecting motherhood for the sake of the views, really. Which I think is something that's not really taken into account. Like, people say outrageous things to get views. I mean, I've certainly done it, right? But, like, the more outrageous thing you say, generally the more views you will get. Generally, the higher the chances you are to be viral. And so a quote I heard, but it was a pretty long time ago, so I'm going to completely butcher it, is something along the lines of, like, women are escaping their male masters for corporate masters instead. Definitely not the same words, but the meaning is around the same, right? Like, women, instead of being slaves to men in marriages, you know, unable to do anything without their man, are now becoming enslaved to corporations, of which most corporations CEOs are also men. So I mean, it's kind of the same. It's just you're trading husband for a boss. And of course, on a whole, women having access to jobs, to having the same opportunities is great. I don't want to take that away at all. I don't oppose that. I'm just simply highlighting the fact that femininity is no longer being valued anymore. And I believe that is a huge mistake. Anecdotally, I've heard stories of women in their 30s and 40s realizing that they wanted to have kids. They were convinced that, you know, pursuing the career was the thing to do. Pursue the career and avoid family. They were told that was the best way for life satisfaction. And then when they get to this age, it's like, it's much harder to have children at that age. Much harder. Even with freezing eggs. Even with all the hormonal therapies we have. Even with all the technology we have. It's still so much harder. I mean, this is only like one example out of millions of lives. I think the lesson still stands, though. So on the chances that you are a woman and you're watching this, which I kind of doubt, but, you know, who knows? What do? You know, like, if you want to do something, maybe you agree with the points, what do? I would seriously consider what thoughts society has ingrained inside of you, either your desires, or are you just conforming to society? Is your mindset about motherhood only about the negatives? That you only think about what it takes from you, and not what it gives? And further from that, embrace the feminine. Right? It's okay to be a stay-at-home mom. It's okay to do that. Not every woman needs to get a 9-to-5 job. And I've already stated my dislike to 9-to-5 jobs before. You don't need to do that. It's okay to not do that. It's okay to not be academically decorated. To not be successful. Quote successful. To not run a Fortune 500 company. To not be a great lawyer and all the rest of the examples. To not be any of those. It's okay to just be a mother. On the flip side, if you're a man, what the fuck do we do? Like, what the fuck do we do, man? For one, with more and more women becoming more masculine, developing more masculine tendencies, developing their masculine drive, it kind of makes you obsolete if you're all masculine. Women getting jobs and getting paid makes you, the supposed bread maker, obsolete. So I would say hello to your feminine side. And be comfortable with it. David Deida says in his book that a masculine man fully accepts his feminine side as a part of him. He doesn't reject it. He accepts it as part of him. And I think we should all work towards this. Does this mean that you need to be completely feminine? You need to be consumed by it unnaturally? No, that's not what I'm saying. It just means to be able to be in touch with that side of yourself. To not ignore an entire half of yourself. But I also think it means to know what you're looking for. If you're masculine, if you're more masculine than feminine, you probably want a more feminine than masculine woman. And if so, cut the weeds from the lilies, so to speak. Really narrow down who you want as a partner. And to get that, you want to first know where you are at. On the spectrum, how much masculinity do you have? How focused on the mission are you? Versus how focused on love are you? At the end of the day, discovering your feminine side just means to develop yourself. Find weaknesses that you have and develop them. Accept them, accept that feminine side, become stronger overall as a person. Develop yourself. At the end of all of this, it always comes down to that. Always just develop yourself.